Imagine living in your head with an unrelenting thought. An idea that comes without permission, returns without invitation, and grows without reason. A thought that shakes your nerves like the oscillation of a pendulum, from one side to the other, without stopping. Welcome to this audiobook, a quiet but profound journey, intended for every man who feels his thoughts are heavier than his heart, and for all those who fight a fear that no one sees, but which they see every day. This is not a book about pain, but a book about survival, about the fact that you are stronger than you think, and that your mind, even if it is noisy with thoughts and obsessions, is capable of finding calm again. In this journey, we will think in an orderly manner and learn to confront OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, to stop our fear, and to take back control of our life, step by step, with a scientific, practical, and simplified approach. I will tell you what others don't tell you, that you are not weird, you are not alone, and you are not weak. What you are experiencing is understandable, has a treatment, and has an end. Stay with me until the last minute, because these are not just words, but the beginning of a real transformation and the start of a lighter, calmer, and easier life than you imagine. Let's start our journey and finally let the pendulum stop. Chapter 1. When everything begins in silence. There is a moment that no one noticed, a moment so small but that completely changes a man's life. A moment when a strange idea enters your mind, an idea that is not like you, not like your principles, nor the image you have had of yourself for years. This might be a thought about fear, doubt, purity, guilt, illness, or even a thought you wouldn't tell anyone. The thought comes timidly the first time, then it returns, and with the days, it becomes heavier, takes up space, and steals your calm until you feel that it is no longer just a thought, but a daily battle. In this chapter, let's talk honestly about how OCD starts. It doesn't start with a scream, not with a traumatic event, not with a huge situation. It always starts with an idea, a simple idea that most people would consider a fleeting thought, but the mind of the person suffering from OCD does not let it pass. It clings to it, analyzes it, examines it, and then is afraid of its existence. And that's where the whirlwind begins. Why you in particular? It is not a weakness, not a lack of faith, not a lack of patience, but because your mind is highly vigilant, it follows details accurately, examines everything, and always tries to achieve absolute certainty, and absolute certainty is an illusion. And when you try to achieve it, everything becomes threatening. The real fear is not the idea, but its meaning. The patient is not afraid of the idea itself, but is afraid of its interpretation. Am I a bad person? Will I harm someone? Are my thoughts dangerous? Does this mean something about my personality? Have I lost control of myself? And with every question, the pendulum rises more and strikes your nerves harder. And this is where reassurance appears. You seek an answer, a comforting word, proof, a fatwa, religious edict, someone to tell you you are fine. But every reassurance puts out a small fear and lights up a bigger OCD. The brain learns, I will only calm down with reassurance, and an endless cycle begins. The good news is that this chapter is not here to frighten you, but to make you understand one thing. What is happening to you is understandable, has an explanation and a treatment. You are not abnormal, you are not weak, and your thoughts, whatever they are, do not represent your reality. This is the first step to recovery, seeing them as thoughts, and not as sins or character traits. Chapter 2. How a thought turns into fear. In the world of the mind, no idea is dangerous. The real danger begins when we interpret the thought with the worst possible scenario, and then believe this interpretation. The thought does not come to harm you, but your fear of it gives it a greater force than it deserves. It then transforms from a fantasy into a threat, and from a simple passing idea into a mass of fear that lives in your chest. In this chapter, we will understand step by step how a fleeting thought turns into an obsession that controls your life. The beginning, what if? It all starts with these two words, what if? What if I was sick? What if I harmed someone? What if I lost my faith? What if I broke something important? What if I didn't check? What if I didn't wash my hands properly? What if I didn't say the right word? The what if is the initial spark. It doesn't harm but opens a door that the mind fears closing. Exaggeration phase. The mind makes a mountain out of a molehill. The obsessive mind does not see things as they are, but as it fears they might be. A small idea turns into a big scenario. A passing detail becomes a threat. A simple moment turns into a crisis. The brain enters a state of emergency, preparing for something that will not happen, and acts as if it is about to happen now. Physical fear phase. The body believes the lie. When you are afraid of the thought, your body reacts to defend you. Rapid pulse, shortness of breath, tension, sweating, dizziness, sudden anxiety, trembling limbs. This is where the body deceives you. If I'm trembling like this, then the idea is dangerous, so you believe the fear and forget the truth. Certainty-seeking phase, the wrong rescue attempt. The quest for escape begins. Overthinking, endless analysis, repeated questions, searching the internet, fatwas, checking things, repeating the action, asking people for help, prayer motivated by terror to achieve tranquility. All of this is a desperate attempt at control, but the certainty you seek will not come, because it is not outside, it is inside your fear. The moment OCD is born, the transformation happens here. The thought becomes a cycle that returns every day, sometimes every hour, and sometimes every minute. This is how we move from a disturbing thought to full-blown OCD. Not because you are weak, but because you are trying to be perfect, and perfection is a pressure the mind cannot bear. The truth that frees you. The thought was not dangerous, the problem was not the thought, but your reaction to the thought. When you understand this, the real treatment begins. Because you cannot control the thoughts, but you can control the fear. Chapter conclusion. The thought is not your enemy. The fear of it is the enemy. As long as fear feeds on reassurance and the mind runs away, the pendulum will continue to swing. But we will stop it together, step by step. Chapter 3. The OCD cycle. When the mind closes its doors, an invisible cycle begins, small at first, then it grows until it becomes a cage whose walls you don't see, but which you feel with every heartbeat, with every difficult breath. In this chapter, we will reveal the secret of this cycle, how it controls the mind, and why it is difficult to get out without a real understanding. The thought. An idea knocks on the door and the mind opens it. Every obsessive thought begins with a slight knock, a simple idea, a fleeting image, a strange question. You do not choose it or invite it, but as soon as you are afraid of it, it is as if you are opening the door for it and inviting it in. This is where the bad journey begins. Fear rises and the pendulum swings. The mind tells you, be careful, there may be danger, so the fear ignites, your heart beats fast, and the pendulum swings inside you from right to left. All of this is not because the thought is real, but because your body believed your fear. The escape. The moment the cycle closes begins with a small attempt to calm yourself. You wash one more time, you check again, you reread a word, you rearrange something, you ask someone, you read a fatwa, you search the internet, you overthink for hours. This step gives you temporary relief, but unfortunately, it locks you into the cycle. Because your brain learns a new rule, I will only calm down if I do this action. Reassurance then turns into an addiction and the compulsive behavior becomes a condition for calm. Temporary relief, the fuel that feeds OCD. You feel relief for a few seconds or minutes, then the thought returns, you repeat the behavior, then you calm down a little, then the thought returns. This is how an invisible cycle turns, a cycle that drains your energy day after day. The reassurance you think you are using to escape the fear is what feeds the fear. When the mind is exhausted, you reach a stage where you feel psychologically exhausted, unable to continue thinking normally. You lose your passion, you are afraid to sleep, afraid to wake up, afraid of your own thoughts. You feel that the mind has become a crowded place where there is no more room for rest or silence. This is where some think there is no way out, but the truth is that this stage is the beginning of awareness and the beginning of the ability to change. Understanding the cycle is the beginning of getting out. The cycle is not a curse, nor an end, nor an eternal prison, but it is just a nervous habit that your brain has learned over time, and it can get rid of it over time too. The treatment begins here, when you know that reassurance is not a solution, that confrontation is not a danger, that anxiety does not kill anyone, and that you are stronger than you imagine. Chapter conclusion. OCD is a cycle, but the cycle can be broken. The thought only has the strength you give it, and reassurance is not an exit, but a back door that brings you back inside. But we will break this door and open a real door to the outside in the coming chapters. Chapter 4. How reassurance stops and recovery begins. For every person suffering from OCD, there is a defining moment, a moment when they feel that everything they do to reassure themselves is no longer useful but makes the situation worse. And this moment, despite its harshness, is the beginning of the right path. In this chapter, we will learn the most important point of the recovery journey, stopping reassurance. This may sound like a simple word, but it is the most powerful step a human being can take towards freedom. What is reassurance and why does it destroy your mind? Reassurance is not a word, a question, or a prayer, but it is an escape. An escape from a thought that frightens you, an escape from a disturbing feeling, an escape from a possibility you do not want. But every time you run away, you tell your brain that the idea is dangerous, that the anxiety is greater than your capacity, and that escape is the solution, and the cycle tightens. Why is it hard to stop? Because reassurance gives you a quick, but highly attractive, relief. It is like a thirsty person who finds salt water in front of him. He drinks and feels momentary relief, then his thirst increases. The moment of confrontation, when you decide to stop reassurance, the mind will resist. It will frighten you, remind you of the worst images, but this resistance is proof that you are on the right track. The secret of recovery: accepting anxiety instead of fighting it. Recovery does not happen when thoughts disappear, but when they lose their impact on you. The genius brain: when your mind senses that you are no longer running away, it will begin to readjust. Freedom: it begins here. When you stop reassurance, you regain control, you regain your consciousness, you regain the calm you had lost. Chapter conclusion. Reassurance is not the cure, but a part of the disease. Stopping it may frighten you at first, but it is the certain path to recovery. Chapter 5. Exposure and Response Prevention (ERP) Technique. There is a moment in the recovery journey that we must reach, a difficult, terrifying, but decisive moment. A moment where you stand in front of the idea you have always run from and tell it for the first time, "Come on, I won't run anymore." This moment is the essence of the Exposure and Response Prevention (ERP) technique, which is the most powerful and effective therapeutic tool for treating OCD. What is exposure? Exposure simply means facing the thought or situation that causes you anxiety instead of running from it. What is response prevention? RP? This means facing the disturbing thought and refraining from performing any compulsive behavior you usually use to relieve your anxiety. How exposure works. When you face the thought and do not perform the compulsive behavior, the fear center calms down. Does exposure work with all types of OCD? Yes, whether they are religious, intellectual, sexual, contamination, doubt, or even harmful thoughts, all are treatable. How to start? The beginnings are not a leap, but a step. We will establish a 10-level scale, ranging from things that cause the least anxiety to those that cause the most. Conclusion: the Exposure and Response Prevention (ERP) technique is not just a treatment, It is a revolution inside the brain. Chapter 6. When the pendulum slows down. After every wave of fear, after every exposure, after every courageous decision not to perform the compulsive behavior, something begins to happen in your mind. The descent phase. This is not a disappearance, but a readjustment. OCD does not disappear suddenly, it transforms. Suspicion of calm. At first, after years of tension, you might feel that OCD returns stronger after an improvement. Conclusion. The pendulum that used to swing between fear and reassurance is now beginning to slow down. The fear when calm arrives. You feel it's a trap, that something is going to happen, that the idea will return, that you are not ready. This feeling is normal, it is part of the journey and is not a failure. Second, the brain's resistance to improvement. When you start to recover, the brain, accustomed to depending on OCD, feels it is losing control and begins to send strange thoughts. Are you sure you are well? What if you are neglecting something important? Maybe you are wrong, maybe the idea is real this time. This is not a relapse. These are healing bounces, like a wound that begins to heal. Third, the moment the pendulum slows down. Every time you face an idea, let it pass and do not give it meaning, the oscillation decreases in your mind. The pendulum that used to swing with all its force from right to left begins to move slowly, then slower, until it reaches a point of balance. This is where the great transformation occurs. You begin to guide your thoughts and not the other way around. This is the stage where you realize for the first time that you are capable of living without that fear. Fourth, how do you know you are really improving? There are clear but subtle signs. You begin to forget that you are afraid, not because the fear has disappeared, but because it no longer controls your day. Moments of calm become longer, and what used to last hours now lasts only a few minutes. You learn that the idea is not reality, just an idea and nothing more. You begin to live outside your head. You laugh more, you are busier, you breathe deeper. Fifth, why does the brain sometimes seem to take revenge? In the improvement phase, a new idea, a new fear, or a question that had never occurred to you might appear. This is not a new OCD, it is the same OCD trying to test you in a different way. The mind attempts its last attempts to return to its old pattern, but every time you refuse to react, it loses more. Sixth, this chapter is not the end of the journey, but a beginning. Recovery is not that the thoughts disappear. Recovery is that they lose their impact on you. That the thought arrives, that you stare at it and say, I know you well, and I will not move. When you reach this point, the brain realizes that its game is over and the pendulum stops, or at least it becomes so slow that you no longer feel it. Chapter 7. Practical Daily Solutions to Deal with OCD. When you are in the heart of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, OCD, you feel that thoughts besiege every moment of your life, and that every wrong move could drag you into a whirlwind. But the journey does not stop at realizing the problem. It begins with applying practical solutions that make the difference between feeling helpless and feeling strong. In this chapter, we will address practical daily steps that will help you master the thoughts and give you back a part of your life every day. Write down and observe thoughts. Start by recording every disturbing thought that comes to mind. Write it down on paper. Don't try to change it. Observe how you feel when it appears without judging it. This step transforms thoughts from an internal enemy into a subject you can observe. Awareness of what is happening in your mind is the real beginning of change. Face thoughts gradually. Apply what you learned in the Exposure and Response Prevention (ERP) technique. Choose a thought or situation that causes anxiety and face it without seeking reassurance. Start with the simplest things, then gradually progress. The goal is not to get rid of the thought, but to break the relationship between the thought and the fear. With every confrontation, the pendulum slows down and the intensity of the OCD decreases. Determine moments for worry. Don't fight OCD all day. but reserve a specific time for worrying, for example, 15 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening. During this time, observe the thoughts and do not run from them. Outside this time, commit to doing your normal activities without worrying about them. This exercise helps the mind realize that life continues despite the thoughts. Reorient attention. When a disturbing thought appears, move, do a physical activity, talk to someone you trust, or write. Don't try to turn it off by force, but refocus on real life. Every moment you close the door to OCD, you gain a part of your freedom. Relaxation and breathing techniques. A tense body doubles the strength of OCD. Try deep breathing. Inhale for 3 seconds and exhale for 3 seconds. Practice progressive muscle relaxation. Use these tools when the wave of anxiety rises. You will notice that thoughts become less powerful when your body is calm. Patience and perseverance. OCD does not disappear overnight. Every day you apply these steps, every small confrontation, every moment you stop seeking reassurance, every time you allow the thought to pass without reacting to it, you sow the seeds of recovery and you will gradually reap the rewards. Support and sharing. Don't fight alone. Talk to a mental health professional or support groups. Sharing your experiences relieves psychological pressure and increases your understanding of your journey. Sometimes, simply knowing you are not alone significantly lightens the burden. Chapter 7 Conclusion. Daily solutions are not magic, but they are your daily weapon against OCD. Every small step, every confrontation, every moment of patience is part of regaining your life and returning the pendulum to its natural place where thoughts calm down and your mind belongs to you. Chapter 8. Advanced Tools for Strengthening Recovery. After learning how to deal with daily thoughts and break the vicious cycle of OCD, it is time to strengthen your mental and emotional resilience capabilities. In this chapter, we will review advanced tools to anchor recovery. Strengthen mental flexibility. Observe your thoughts without dwelling on them. Talk to yourself like a neutral observer. It's just an idea, and it won't control me. Use positive mental imagery. Imagine yourself doing your daily activities without fear. Repeat this visualization daily to reinforce the feeling of control. Progressive challenge. Choose situations that are more difficult than usual and face them step by step. Every time you prove that you are capable, the impact of OCD decreases. Continuous support. Stay in touch with a specialist or a support group. Sharing gives you energy, patience, and anchors the progress you are making. Chapter 8 Conclusion. These tools are not difficult, but they are very effective if you apply them regularly. Complete recovery requires patience and practice, and every day you apply these tools, your mind becomes stronger, freer, and more stable in the face of any OCD. Chapter 9. Maintaining Recovery and Preventing Relapses. Recovery from OCD is a continuous journey that is not limited to getting rid of a single idea or feeling. Therefore, Chapter 9 focuses on how to maintain your progress and prevent the return of OCD. Continue daily practice. Do not stop facing small and large thoughts. Every day you apply exposure and response prevention (ERP), your mind becomes more stable in the face of obsessive thoughts. Observe yourself without judgment. Notice any disturbing thought that appears, but do not judge it. Tell yourself, "It's just an idea, I won't succumb to it." Calm observation prevents the mind from restarting the anxiety cycle. Maintain a healthy routine. Regular sleep, good nutrition, and physical activity all strengthen the ability to control the mind and body and reduce anxiety. Learn early response. When a strong thought appears, address it quickly. Any postponement increases its strength and brings the pendulum back into motion. Continuous support. Consult a specialist or a support group if necessary. Sharing daily challenges prevents feelings of loneliness and supports perseverance. Chapter 9 Conclusion. Maintaining recovery is not difficult, but it requires daily commitment and awareness. Every practice, every confrontation, every healthy routine is a protection for yourself against relapses. Remember that OCD does not disappear by chance, but fades away through patience, perseverance, and daily training. Chapter 10. Freedom After the Pendulum. You have gone through the entire journey, the frightening idea, the fear, the physical fear, the OCD cycle, confronting reassurance, exposure and response prevention (ERP), practical tools, and maintaining recovery. And now, it is time to settle within yourself and understand the great truth. OCD is not your defeat, but an opportunity to learn to control your mind and your life. True freedom. Freedom is not the absence of thoughts, but the absence of the control that OCD exerted over your life. When you face thoughts and do not run, when you observe them without judgment, and when you use the daily tools, true freedom begins to emerge. Sustaining strength. Every daily habit and every small confrontation is part of a lasting strength. Every success, no matter how simple, is a protective wall against relapses. Do not minimize your progress. Even if it seems slow to you, it is your path to stability. The lessons learned. Thoughts are just thoughts. They do not control your life unless you give them the power. Reassurance is temporary. Confrontation is real. Every courageous step gives you back control and gradually strengthens your brain. My message to myself: always remember, I observe, I face, I choose. OCD no longer decides for me and no longer controls my life. The journey of recovery from OCD may be long, but it is not impossible. Patience, daily practice, understanding the brain's mechanism, and courageously confronting thoughts are the key to regaining the life of the pendulum that swung without stopping. It will begin to slow down until you are the leader of your mind and your life, your kingdom, far from all fear or constraint. Remember, every day you face your thoughts, and every minute you control your mind is a new step towards true freedom.